is 0809 4440981. You can also at Smooth 981. Good morning, Rotus, and happy New Day.
Good morning, Zibby. Good morning to all our listeners and viewers out there. Yes, happy new day. It's this Tuesday morning.
Okay, so we've got a few to talk about. Stock opening with the July gain, 534 billion naira gain, and Nigerian federal government announcing plans to collect VAT for market traders and the informal sector. Okay, you know what? Let's start with the stock market. What has been the catalyst for the growth this year?
I think it's been reforms coming from the administration. Basically, the promise of, at least for certain sectors, their profitability being improved. For example, the removal of fuel subsidies has had an impact on the downstream sector, downstream oil and gas. So the players in that sector that sell fuel, sell lubricants, oils, and all these other downstream items, their profit margins have been increased by the removal of fuel subsidies. So that has led to investors purchasing more of their stocks in anticipation of them making more profits. You've also seen the banking sector rally because of the removal of the central bank governor and I think, monetary policy revamping in Nigeria, where they feel that the banking stocks are going to get more firepower now that the exchange rate has been liberalized, and also there'll be possibly less stringent requirements on them with respect to something like the cash reserve ratio, which holds a certain amount of money from the banks with the central bank. So it's about 32.5%. And so 32 naira, 50 kobo of every 100 naira is being held with the CBN, doesn't earn any interest. That cash needs to be freed up. So things like that are what have at least catalyzed downstream oil and gas stocks and banking stocks as well.
Brilliant. So what would basically keep them going?
Well, right now the market wants to see, more reforms and more basically implementation on the part of the government. So, for example, that other news bit of the government wanting to collect value-added tax from the informal sector to boost its revenues, ending of oil thefts, seeing, insecurity ended and stuff like that. So more concrete actions from governments, more policy implementations. A new cabinet would also help as well, knowing who is appointed for what sectors and so on and so forth. That's the kind of the stuff that the market wants to see going forward.
All right. Are there any particular sectors that should be paid attention to, and why, if there are?
Well, I mean, yeah, the banking stocks they've done pretty well. So for one of the best performing sectors. So I would still keep my eye on banks. The downstream oil and gas will still keep my eye there. Perhaps industrial sector as well, possibly because of hopefully infrastructure spending that is to come. Although right now with the market on a high, some people would advise that one just waits and lets the market cool down a bit before jumping in. But those are the sectors that I would say one would watch going forward.
All right, let us know what your thoughts are. 0809 4440981. You can also tweet at Smooth981 and catch the live stream up on YouTube. It's Smooth981 FM Lagos. Let's talk about external reserves. Why have our reserves declined?
Yeah, well, it's a combination of defending the currency. So basically, we've held up until June 14th anyway. we've held this, artificial overvalued official exchange rate of 460 something to the dollar. I mean, it was at 415, then moved to 420, then 430, then 440s, then 460s. And to maintain that level, you've got to keep selling dollars into the market in order to keep that level there. You've also got a lack of dollar inflows into the country from lack of foreign investments, lack of foreign portfolio investors coming in. So when you've got I don't know, your oil theft has meant that you haven't sold as much oil as you should have in the past. So when you've got demand side pressure from people who want to import things and are needing dollars from banks, and you've got your supply side impacted where you're not selling as much oil, and also FX not coming in from foreigners, central bank has had to into the reserves a little more than it's I think it declines about 2.2 billion or so since the beginning of the year.
Wow. So what is the potential impact of the decline in the reserves?
Yeah, so your import cover, so the amount of months that you can cover your imports is going to be impacted. So basically, the amount of months that you can cover your impacts the amount of months you can cover for imports will fall because you've got less money. It's almost like less savings that are there in order to pay for all the things people need, whether they're paying for school fees or they're paying for medical tourism, or you've got traders and so on that are paying to import machinery or anything else. So as your reserves fall, you're not able to cover all those imports. So I think our import cover is about 4 or 5 months or so. So if it continues to drop, the number of those months will drop as well.
All right, thank you for that. So will the recent liberalization of the exchange rate in any way make a difference to the reserves?
Well, it will mean that perhaps there'll be less defending of the currency on the part of the central bank. So now that they've taken the handbrake off to an extent and allowed the currency to basically devalue to 700 naira levels, they may not intervene unless there's an emergency, or maybe the currency spikes to almost 1,000 or something like that. So you'll see less defending of the currency and more allowance of market forces to determine the rate. So that could allow for some savings to some extent.
Okay. I've got a message coming through. This is Benga, and he says, will these policies not lead to a deepening of poverty in the short and long run? Where are the policies to help people cope?
It's a good question. So, yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So because by removing fuel subsidies, you are making the cost of purchasing it more expensive. My vehicle now is looking at about 50,000 naira for me to fill my tank because it's 100 liters, and that's really painful, even though I support the removal of fuel subsidies. So something has to be done with respect to the whole talk of whether you want to call them palliatives or interventions. But I think the challenge now is how to successfully determine who will get what. So they've got to move quickly. So Benga his message is spot on.
All right, let's talk about taxes. What do you make of the plan to collect VAT from the informal sector?
Yeah, it's a plan that is welcome because you have a large informal sector that accounts for so much of the Nigerian economy, and they're just not paying taxes because they're just distrust of government, lack of infrastructure to be able to collect those taxes from them. Although one would argue that touts and area boys are able to collect these taxes from market people, but as far as money going into the government coffers, it's a welcome move. How it is going to be done, that's the challenging part. But yeah, it's a welcome move.
Ogeneo Chuko says tax on the informal sector with the back taxes, aka Agbero money. This is definitely going to add to the burden on the market men and women. I prefer taxes on luxury goods. So
Good point.
speaking
Good
about
point.
these taxes, how do you think they will implement this though?
So it's a collaboration. The FIRS, that's the Federal Inland Revenue Service, put out an announcement yesterday saying that they're going to be working with the Market Traders Association of Nigeria to collect that VAT. So basically, apparently, they've got a very large membership, numbering in the millions, and so they intend to use identification of each member in order to basically have to identify them. And so you need the help of an association that has all these members. It's like saying you want to, just using an example, I know churches are not taxed, but if you're going to went to a church to find out how much it makes monthly to go to it, to know the number of people in its congregation, those who contribute their tithes and so on. So they're trying to use an identification system. I think they use some tech as well to identify those members and then get them to remit their VATs. Now, whether the members comply will be a different story, but at least it's a welcome idea.
Okay. Let's see if we've got any other messages coming through. 0809 444 0981. That is the WhatsApp number. And you can also tweet at smooth981. Don't forget the hashtag is Business Express 981. And right, I'm just going to check the live stream to see if we have any more comments coming through via the live stream. Okay, we don't, and we've got about a minute to go. So overall, how do you think regular folk will react to this?
Yeah, so look, Nigeria needs more tax revenue. The issue, though, is distrust of governments, basically feeling like your taxes are not going to, they're not being used properly. So, and I also think that this probably should be, disaggregated through the states. So basically you should have, an LIRS, there's the Lagos Inland Revenue Service, or the other state revenue services implementing this in their local government areas rather than the FIRS announcing it. But either way, as far as regular folk will, they just want to see an efficient government. And so taxes are not being increased, at least VAT is not being raised. It's just they are widening the tax nets to try to collect from those who are there already. I think it'll be challenging, but let's see what happens between now and the end of the year. We'll check the numbers for VAT and see if they increase.
All right. Well, that's all the time that we have for Business Express this morning. Thanks for your messages. Thanks for listening. And thanks for being on the show.
All right. Thank you, Zibby. I'll catch you guys tomorrow. Take it easy.
And that's all the time for Business Express. Do stay with us. There's a lot more to come on Smooth Breakfast.